Awesome. Alright, you guys just broke down the path. You are absolutely crushing it, which is insane, super exciting, super powerful, and just ridiculously cool. So I'm really pumped with you to share with you guys a short and sweet one that's really, really powerful, really packs a punch, and one that really had a big impact on me and hopefully has a huge impact on you, which is like, so cool. And it's this idea of an appeal that everybody likes. That's the goal, that's the foundation. Let's go over to the computer and let's make it happen. Here's the deal. You got Dale, and he was sort of at the edge of this, country in Missouri, and he was visiting his buddy in Missouri, where, the sons of Jesse James were living, and his wife was telling Dale stories about how Jesse robbed trains and held up banks and then gave money to neighboring farmers to pay off their mortgage. Now, Jesse James probably regarded himself as an idealist at heart, such as Dutch Schultz or the two-gun Crowley guy we heard about at the beginning of the book, or Al Capone, and many other organized crime godfathers that, were generations earlier. But the fact is that all people you meet have a high regard for themselves and like to be fine and unselfish in their own estimation. So everybody sees themselves on this super big pedestal, no matter what they're doing. It doesn't matter what actions, what impact, like everything comes from this idea that everyone sees himself on this magical pedestal. And so here's the interesting part, okay? J.P. Morgan observed in one of his analytical interludes that a person usually has two reasons for doing something, all right? One that sounds good, and then the real reason. And your goal is to look past what people say that makes them sound good. Look past that crap and figure out what the real reason, what is the real motivation someone does something. Because the person himself will think of the real reason. You don't need to emphasize that. But everyone being idealist at heart, like the thought of our motives sounding good. So in order to sort of change people and appeal to nobler motives, people use this idea of a reason that sounds good to them, right? And so it crushes their internal honesty, right? And here's the deal, okay? It is not, too idealistic to work in business. This is a really great example that I think kind of shows this concept with Hamilton Farrell of the Farrell Mitchell Company in Pennsylvania. What's cool is like he distinguishes tenants who threatened to move, and he had a really, really upset tenant one time, and his lease still had 4 months left. But nonetheless, he kind of realized that this guy was super pissed off, and he actually served a notice that he was going to vacate immediately regardless of the lease. And so these people, they lived in this house all winter, and it was the most expensive part of the year, he said as he told the story to the class, and he knew that it would be difficult to rent the apartment again before fall. You could see the rent income going over the hill, and it was pretty bad. He was gonna lose a lot of money if he couldn't, get this guy to stay in this little room in his house and keep paying his rent, right? This is why I don't deal with real estate, man. And so now ordinarily, he would have waited into that tenant and advised him to read his lease again. And he would have pointed out that if he moved, the full balance of his rent would fall due at once, and that he could and would move to collect. But here's the interesting part, okay? Instead of, flying off the handle and making a scene, he decided to try something else. So he started like this. He said, "Mr. Doe, I have listened to your story. I care. I understand. And I still don't believe you intend to move." After years in the renting business, I've learned something about human nature, and I sized you up the first time I saw you to be a man of your word. Remember this idea of giving a dog a good name to live up to. He is a man of his word. And so because of that, he goes to the next part, and he says, "Look, in fact, I'm so sure of it. I believe in you so much that I will take a gamble on it. Now here's my proposition. Lay your decision on the table for a few days and think it over. If you come back to me between now and the 1st of the month, when your rent is due, and tell me you still intend to move, I give you my word I will accept your decision as final. I will privilege you to move and admit to myself I've been wrong in my judgment, but I still believe you're a man of your word and will live up to your contract. I believe in you to be what you know should be true, to do what you know to be true. And after all, we are either men or monkeys, and the choice usually lies within ourselves." And when he says this to this tenant who is basically skipping out on his rent, he creates such an intimate, deep connection with him because he believes in him, and he shows that he cares about him, and he praises him, and he sympathizes with them. And most significantly, he appeals to his inner reasons, his inner self. And so the guy says, well, a new month came around, and this gentleman came to see me and pay, his rent in person. Because he and his wife had talked it over, and he said and decided they were going to stay. And they concluded that the only honorable thing to do was to live up to their lease. And What's cool is when this guy, he found a newspaper using a picture of him they didn't want published. Sort of like this renting guy was a different guy, Lord Neilcliffe, and it's all about this idea of a decision, right? So these guys made a decision that this guy made a decision, he was gonna believe in his tenants, he was gonna go all in on them. And that decision turned into a reality when he took action on it. Same thing happens here with Lord Neilcliffe. He found a newspaper that was using a picture of him that he didn't want published. And he's like, dude, I look really bad in this picture, blah, 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 I don't know, some crap like that. And he wrote the editor a letter, but here's the cool thing, and this is a cool little trick. It's the same idea earlier. You want to inspire the person to do it, not because you want them to pay rent, not because you want them to remove the picture from the newspaper, but because something greater. There's a greater interior force. There's a greater, remember this idea of the two reasons, you want to appeal to their greater reason, the greater reason that they will believe that sounds really, 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 really good and aligns with your core. So here's what to do. It says, please do not publish that picture of me anymore. Not because I don't like it. No, he appealed to a nobler motive. You want to appeal to a nobler motive, right? The motive of honesty, the motive of truthfulness, or here this idea of a motive of, here I'll show you, this is about to tell you. And so, you know, he appealed to the respect and love that all of us have for motherhood. He wrote, please do not publish that picture of me anymore. My mother doesn't like it. And how do you think that went? I'll tell you guys a secret. It went phenomenally because he appealed to a higher being. Same thing happened with John D. Rockefeller. He wanted to stop newspaper photographers from snapping pictures of his kids, and he appealed to their higher motives. He said, you know, he didn't say, look, I don't want you to take pictures of my kids, that's weird. Instead he said, he applied the deep internal desire in all of us to refrain from harming kids, and he said, you know how it is, boys. You've got children yourselves, some of you, and you know it's not good for youngsters to get too much publicity. He rephrased the question, reslated the argument so that they were focusing on something that they could feel, a tangible result that sort of made sense to them because they had kids and they had this internal reason. This is the internal reason that brought them to actually come onto Rockefeller's side and join his team, join his movement, and stop, you know, taking pictures of his kids because they understood where he's coming from and they actually care. That's really huge. That's super powerful.